and they're like, make me something new, and I wanted something that you would bring drink from the heart. And of course now pressure's on, right? You got to come up with something on the fly, and of course it's can't be anything that you've already worked with, and you're trying to do something new. And so you just start experimenting, and then you sample it and make sure it's good. Oh, that's not good. I got to do this. I got to do that. And so all of a sudden there's this kind of like nervous energy that starts building with you and the client. And eventually you get to a point where you're like, okay, this is great. I would drink this. Pour it for them, and then just pray that they like it.
Hey guys, this is Sid Patel here live from the second day of Bartender Spirits Awards in San Francisco. I'm here with Chris Ruys, and he's one of the great bartenders out from San Francisco, and we're going to chat about some pressure situations and his tips on how he handles them. Chris, thanks for joining me here.
Thank you very much, Sid. Pleasure to be here.
Great. Let's go right there where we can add some value to the bartenders who may be in these situations and would love to see how you handle them, right? So I've got some examples. I'm going to name them, and then you can just give me your way of dealing it. So bartending job is real physical job. So when you're like standing for almost 50 to 60 hours week by week, what do you do to make sure you don't have a burnt out, like a physical strength burnt out?
Well, I mean, a lot of the job, of course, yes, is standing and shaking and stirring and constantly going up a lot of places, stairs with cases full of liquor, and it's taxing on the body. So for me, I like to relax a little bit in my free time. Spend some time just enjoying a view somewhere. Whether it be in Napa or Sonoma, or maybe at the top of Twin Peaks here in San Francisco.
So in the non-working hours, you would just go complete detox sort of thing.
Exactly, and then when you need to, when it's time to exercise, it's time to exercise. But the job itself is exercise.
Yeah, true. What about footwear? What about clothing? Do you work on that it makes you comfortable?
Yes, absolutely. I think for me, I like to wear form-fitting clothing, nothing that's too tight or too slim. I have a little bit of I don't know how to say this, a larger derriere, so slim fits can rip very quickly.
Got it. Noted. Now on a busy night, right? Like imagine a case where there are like 13 cocktails that just came from different tables, pretty much at the same time. How do you prioritize them?
You always want to just knock out the ones that take the least amount of time first.
Okay.
So that way you can get those out. That way, in certain situations, when you're not too pressed for time, you could run a few drinks to each table just so they know that things are on the way. If you try to do one table at a time, then by the time you get to the last one. So
it's not like first in, first out approach.
Well, of course, first in, first out. But if they're all at the same time.
Same time, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a good point you raised. Like there is a group of, let's say, 6 people, you would at least bring 2 drinks them so they know it's coming, right?
Absolutely.
Understood.
Yeah. Just knock out the quick ones first, and that way you can spend a little bit more time when, especially if you have doubles or triples of certain items.
Got it.
Just getting those out of the way later.
Got it. So just by the visual look at the order, you will make a decision in your mind. Fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And like drinks like vodka sodas, gin and tonics, those can sit versus where like a martini or an up cocktail, something that you have to shake or stir is it's going to fall flat if it sits there for too long.
So owners are sitting, and sometimes they just show up, investors, owners, whatever you want to call them, but then they have their friends, they have their favorites, they'll make promises to customers, and you have to do like, oh, we make this amazing cocktail, try it, and then you'll have to figure it out, right? So what's your experience of dealing with owner stress or any stress that comes from that sort of thing?
Honestly, it's how you keep your job. Just do what they ask you to do, and don't make a scene about it. We're here to help them look good, and in turn they help us look good.
Co-workers, right? Someone's taking shots with customers. Some bars are okay with it, some are not.
Some are.
So maybe how would you approach your staff member? What do you do in those situations?
In those situations, I would, not in the moment, right? Don't make a scene, especially in front of the guests. But when they're finished with that interaction, try to find a way to pull them aside and explain to them, how it's detrimental to the team, and how by one person doing it, when we're not allowed to do it, it makes us all look bad.
A barback or a bartender isn't pulling their weight, right? Like that they're just hiding here and there, they're running slow. Maybe they're not in the mood that day, or they're just lazy, whatever you want to put it, but they are just not performing, right? And someone else has to take the weight because the show must go on, right? As we,
Always.
as we know.
Absolutely.
How do you deal with that situation?
Try to put them in a position where they can do the least amount of damage. For instance, most bars will have a corner.
Yep.
And you can limit the amount of seats that they're taking care of in that situation. Don't put them in the service well. Just keep them out of the service well. Unless, of course, maybe the service well isn't very active and the bar is really very active and there's lots of people who are very demanding. In that situation, I would switch roles.
And have you had situations where, you know how sometimes we think that it's better you just go. I would rather work with 9 people instead of 10 because the speed will be still,
Absolutely.
you're actually slowing
Absolutely.
down.
And they appreciate that too because they don't want to be there, just like you don't want them to be there.
Got it. The kitchen, right? Which is sort of a marriage which you have. A lot of people don't know, but a lot of preparation times, ingredients, all that goes there. But now the chef is focusing on that. So how do you mingle with the chef's staff and your staff?
I can tell you the bar staff and the kitchen staff mingle very well. It's mostly the front of house servers that seem to always have issues with the kitchen. I don't think I've ever had an issue with the kitchen because I understand how it works. For servers, they don't understand the idea of tickets and having to get stuff out that looks great and tastes great in a certain amount of time. For them, they're relying on other people to do that, and they need it because the guests are staring at them. Where's my food? Where's my food?
True.
Versus for us as cocktail makers, you're in the similar situation.
So the server has no idea. Let's say they're just waiting on some ingredient for the kitchen staff to cut and give you, for example. Yeah. So and the kitchen staff just say that, okay, give me 10 minutes. I'm in the middle of this lamb dish, for example.
Exactly.
So how do you balance the temper of that server, or what do you do in that case?
In that situation, maybe send out a little perfect pour of something that the guests can enjoy while you're waiting for that. Yeah,
okay,
absolutely. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy expensive. It just means fun, something to sip on, say your cocktail will be right out. Here's a little something to enjoy in the meantime.
Got it. So everybody wants to dance and go crazy, right? When there is a party, birthday party or bachelor party or this and that. How do you go and tell the people to sort of tone it down if it's affecting the bar?
Well, we've definitely had situations where it's affecting the bar, and I think there's times where you let them celebrate, but then you have to just go in there and say, hey guys, we have some other guests coming through. Can we just kind of bring this party to the side, make sure to make room for our other guests? And thank you so much for celebrating with us.
Great. Customers have left their belongings, jacket, phone, this and that, and then how they come and blame that it got stolen here. How do you approach that kind of customers?
We obviously we don't take any fault for anything that happens. We just calmly and, collect their information, say, as soon as we hear something or see something, we'll let you know. And, just know that we're going to keep our eyes out for you, but we can't promise that we're going to find it.
Bar fights, right?
Those are the best.
Yeah. So give me a couple of examples of how they start, like some example you may remember and how you had to stop them.
It's usually somebody intoxicated and maybe they trip or they, talk to the wrong person. That person didn't want to be spoken to by that individual, and a scene kind of arises and there's tempers, and naturally, something is going to break out unless somebody intervenes. And so instead of one person intervening, you always want to get 2 people. Ideally, one of the friends of the person that's involved, so that way they can help calm them down because it's a familiar face.
Good point.
Otherwise, it's going to be myself, another manager, another bartender, just so that we can, split up the whatever's happening.
And then depending on the toxic level, you simply escort them directly if it's that bad?
Yeah, absolutely. Just get them outside. Most of the time, it doesn't really happen at a restaurant bar. It's very rare that it happens. It does.
More of a nightclub thing.
It's more of a nightclub, yeah.
Got it.
And so in that case, we'll always have a bouncer who can make sure that they don't get back in.
Got it. Now, 2 more challenges or pressure situations you give me, and then tell me what kind of things you consider like high pressure and how do you solve them?
I think for me, a lot of times there is people will come in, especially if they've already had a few drinks, and then they're expecting some type of show and something that they can record, right? And so for naturally, I think you're not really ready for these situations. You don't have a game plan of like, okay, how am I gonna make this look good, and where is this actually gonna get posted, and you know, those kind of situations. And honestly,
so they start pulling the phone in.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly. And then they're like, oh, do this and do that, and can you know, those type of situations. You just do the best you can. You know, I think, and for me, in those situations, I'm never going to say, no, I'm not going to do this, or no, I'm not going to do that, or I can't do this, and because it just brings the whole vibe down when they're already coming in, and like I said, with these high expectations, you know. So you just do the best you can, and most of the time, you always get a round of applause, you know. Other situations are when, you know, I guess the other hard one is when you really want to impress somebody with a cocktail, and they've had every drink on your list, and they're like, make me something new. And, you know, I want it something that you would, you know, bring drink from the heart. And of course now pressure's on, right? You got to come up with something on the fly. And you, of course, can't be anything that you've already worked with, and you're trying to do something new. And so, you know, you just start experimenting, and then you sample it and make sure it's good. Oh, that's not good. I got to do this. I got to do that. And so all of a sudden there's this kind of like nervous energy that starts building with you and the client. And, you know, eventually you get to a point where you're like, okay, this is great. I would drink this, pour it for them, and then just pray that they like it, you know?
Got it.
and that is always going to be a higher pressure situation. And sometimes they don't. And I've had situations where, you know what, they didn't like it. I said, I'm sorry, let me make you something else. And that's just the reality of the situation.
Super.
I
think these are some good points, and you know, if there is anything more, where can they reach you?
So right now you can find me on Instagram. My full name, Christopher Ruys. Last name is spelled R-U-Y-S. And let's see here. And then of course Facebook. Just look up Chris Ruys. I'll probably be the first one on there.